Welcome to the Energizing America podcast, where we talk all things energy and why we need it in our business and lives. And today we're going to talk about inflation, Jon. Have you heard the word?
Scary.
Scary? Well, I did a Google search the other day because we had some leadership training where the guy, he said, how many Google searches results would you find for the word leadership? So I checked, and for inflation, there's 733 million results that pop up about inflation. So do you think it's on people's minds?
There's some stuff to know, it sounds like.
Yeah. Well, it's been interesting. Of course, in business, inflation is a big topic for us because we obviously have to charge our clients for what we're doing. Our employees, believe it or not, like to be paid. Vendors, for some reason, want to have their bills paid, and this all circles in, and the numbers do have to work. And I know we kind of like to avoid the number conversation, but what are we supposed to do? We got to have it. Got to have the conversation. So I grabbed a couple of statistics. Of course, we know that March just ended. And so the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics and all these fancy agencies come out with their stats, what's happening in the inflationary environment. And you wouldn't believe it, but 8.5% inflation from year over year, from March 22 from March 2021. And do you know that is the highest it's been since 1981? Were you alive?
I was alive. I don't remember being too concerned about inflation at that point. I think I was in first or second grade, but yes, I was alive.
Well, some of us weren't even alive. And now these people that weren't even alive back then are now running a business and trying to figure out, A, what does a word mean? And I have no experience with it, the word inflation.
Well, we have some people that were alive and remember trying to find a job, for example, during that time that work at Wescom today. And it's really interesting how in the lunchroom at lunchtime, they kind of get on that track, and all of a sudden you're back to the days of, someone we know was graduated from high school, was looking for a job, had to move out of state, and someone called him and said that, hey, there's a job at Holiday gas station, you can come back. And he came rushing back to Duluth because he could get a job at the Holiday gas station. So compare that to where we're at today. So there certainly was some inflationary pressure at that time, but it was a little bit different than today, because today there's plenty of jobs available, but no people.
Yeah.
Before they had people, no jobs. So I don't know. I'm not an economist. I'm hoping you'll help me figure this all out.
Well, I don't know there is any figuring it out unless you get to the end here where we talk about politically. Maybe there's a way we can figure this out. But you're right. That story is a powerful story on multiple levels. I mean, the dude comes back to work at Holiday gas station. Now, would have you? I mean, you weren't alive. You weren't employed at that time in your life. So who knows how you would have handled it. But crazy to think of what's happened. Well, when I think about our business and how in the world am I going to survive both as a person, I have a family. I got 8 kids left at home. Good thing the biggest eater moved out because, food is up the highest it's ever been since 1970. So if the oldest was still around, I'd really be bankrupt. But the other 8 kids, believe it or not, want to eat. Mom wants to get the paper goods and everything else that the household needs. And beyond that, we have a business to try and run. And so I was trying to figure out, what are other business owners doing? Our leadership team at Wescom, we've had a lot of conversations about rates with our clients and what we're going to have to do to keep up with it. But I found even Amazon in January, they did a average 5% increase across the board on all their goods. And now in the month of March, they came out, actually just on April 11th, I believe they came out, and they said they're adding a special charge to every one of their wholesalers called a fuel and inflation charge at 5.3% or 5.2%, whatever it was. And this is all, you can read about it on Bloomberg, which is a pretty trustworthy source, right?
Absolutely.
So we have other people in the same exact spot that we are. Of course, if we follow these Amazons of the world, we're, I don't know, what do they call it, a fart in a bucket or whatever. We're nothing compared to an Amazon of the world. But
the wind.
Of the wind, all right. But we got to figure out something. And, this Amazon article I read, the director was just saying, there's nothing they can do. And this is just the beginning of what is to come. That's why they did it. They called it a fuel and inflationary markup. They didn't even say that our prices are going up 10% and now we're golding. They said we're adding a fuel and inflationary markup, and it's at our discretion as to how much that's going to be. Currently, it's at 5%. That's kind of an interesting way to do business.
What are your options? That's the difference between then and now. But I think we should take a step back maybe and talk about what is inflation and what causes inflation.
Well, what do you think?
I'm not an economist, right? But I look at a couple different factors. There's the supply and demand. So when the market wants a certain amount of supply, or the demand is greater than the supply, then naturally prices go up, right? And we always think that's a good thing. Supply and demand, as long as prices are going up, we're making money, everybody's happy. But when it turns out that the supply is so lagging the demand that prices go up artificially, which I think we're at today, at least in my opinion, is one thing. And it's whether it's COVID related, back to the whole supply chain issues, I think has a lot to do with it. Is it everything? No. And there's also policies and regulations that play into inflation for sure. If we could talk, for days about how it's affected the energy industry that we're in. And there's also money supply. And you probably know better than me the amount of money that's been put into the economy in the last few years. Whether it was right or wrong, I can't even tell you. But I can say with certainty that it's definitely affected inflation, right?
Absolutely. And the thing is, when money is put in the economy, it never gets taken out, right? So when these various stimulus bills came through during COVID time, it was money that was added to the economy. And it's not like they said, okay, now when COVID is done, we're going to come back and we're going to take that money out of the economy. That's not what happened. And there was no real substance behind that growth other than additional money. And so whenever that happens, it will catch up. And that's where we're at right now. And interestingly enough, I did a podcast with David Ransomwood several months back, and he's a hot take of the day, hashtag hot take of the day for people who don't know him. And he said that the Fed at that time was calling inflation transitory. And what they mean by that word is that this is just temporary. This is all going to work out, and they're going to have a massive deflation, right? So we just said prices are up 8% year over year. Well, the term transitory means that the next month they might fall down 8%. It was just a transition phase. Life is golden. In December of 2020, the federal government was saying, this is transitory. We still don't expect inflation to exceed our annual target of 2%. Life is okay. Well, it ended in 2021 with over 7% inflation, right? They were off a little bit, you might say.
Just missed it.
Yeah, just missed it barely. Can you imagine if we could do that in our business, how cool that would be? Well, the fact is the reason why it's not transitory is because they never came back and took that money out. So your comment about the additional money getting thrown out there is absolute. It's true. There's this trillions of dollars now part of the economy with no substance behind it. Therefore, prices just naturally went up. Is that to say that deflation won't happen? Well, I'm not, same like you, I'm not an economist, but I think we've both seen wild prices in our life. I've seen 99 cents gasoline for a gallon of gas when I got my driver's license in 1999. I've seen it go up to, $4.50 when I owned an RV and decided to go across the country, only to fall down to $2.20. Yeah, when I sold the RV, that's what do we call that? Our Simonson luck or whatever. Right. That was definitely part of it. But I think you're right. The supply and demand issue with the supply lagging the demand is significant. And we will see when that supply catches up that a portion of this will go away as deflation, right? The supply will catch up. And I think we've seen that in various areas of our business. I was reading something the other day about trucks in the automobile market, because as you know, we talk a lot at Wescom about that.
Big part of our business.
Yeah, and we can't find trucks. And what the latest thing is we just said we always order our trucks in advance, and we went to go place our third quarter order, hoping that if we order them right at the beginning of the second quarter, by the time third quarter ends, we might have these vehicles. And Ford dealer said we can't order any more trucks; they won't let us order anymore. And we called 3 other Ford dealers, and it was all the same answer. Well, when these trucks actually get the chip that they need, when China opens up and they actually get the chips produced and they come over here and they get put in those trucks that are sitting in the parking lots over in Detroit or wherever they're sitting, the market is going to be absolutely flooded, right? What's going to happen? I don't know. Is it going to be cash for clunkers 2.0? There's going to be something. So we kind of adopted the policy, well, there's a blessing in disguise maybe that they won't let us order these trucks. Let's hold off and let's try and get them, identify the need and hit the market and go find whatever the market has at that moment, because that'll hopefully insulate us from this massive deflation that could happen.
The other interesting part of that to me, I think there's a false market being built, because I'm pretty sure you could walk into any Ford dealership in the country right now and order a Ford Lightning.
Interesting.
Right?
Yep.
So there's this false demand for these electric vehicles, but the ones that we need today to keep the country running, they're not building as many anymore. And they are going to a different model. But I guarantee you that if you do that, if you go order a Ford Lightning, you'll get on a list. They'll take your money.
It's much like every single energy policy
Correct.
that's going on, right?
Correct.
And what we find out every time is that the technology isn't there yet. All the incentives and all the ideas are there, but the technology is not there yet. So we cannot turn off the other alternative. And the society too quickly wants to turn off and turn on. We can't. We have to use like a volume button, right? We got to ratchet.
How do we bridge
up to
this
it.
gap?
How do we bridge this gap?
Yep.
Which is exactly what we talk a lot about on this podcast, right?
Right.
That how much of this inflation is really driven just from that issue. So interestingly enough, I had to find out, John, you probably already know this, but housing, transportation, and food, it accounts for 2/3 of the average household budget, right? So 2/3 of our money goes out for housing, transportation, and food. Well, food is up 10%, housing is up 5%, which is, by the way, the highest increase since 1991. I don't know where everybody lives. I just know that in the Twin Ports, Duluth Superior market, rents are out of control. So to go up another 5%, horrible. Williston, North Dakota, rents, one guy just told me that his rental property went from $1,500 a month to $1,900 to renew it. Over in Watford City, somebody went from $1,200 to $1,800, right? Go down to Carlsbad, New Mexico. We just signed a 1-year lease 2 months ago on our apartment that we've been renting for, 4 years? 4 years ago, I paid $1,800 a month for that apartment when we first went down there. It went all the way down to $1,200 at the, what would you call it, the Depression era of our industry. They now want $1,600. It's coming back up. And that's for a little, what is that, a 3-bedroom apartment?
Yeah, it's not much.
It's not much. So that's a big deal. And then, of course, the one I was really interested in, right? So energy, electricity and natural gas. Electricity is up 11% and natural gas is up 21.6%. Okay, let's talk about that for a second, right? What just happened in North Dakota?
Was there like 3 feet of snow that fell on the ground?
That's, I think, what I saw on the safety committee meeting last night when one of our nice guys pointed his camera out the window, and in Dickinson, North Dakota, there was just a blanket, right? And I think all of our team, we're nothing we can do. We're holed up in our houses because we can't move. And so our entire team has been out of work since Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We're not going back to work till Monday at the soonest, provided that North Dakota actually gets some warm weather and gets rid of some of the snow. Well, what does snow indicate? Warm or cold?
Typically, it's not real warm.
Right. All right. So 50-mile-an-hour winds in North Dakota. When I checked yesterday morning, Wednesday morning, it felt like 4 degrees. All right. And this is in April. And I don't know if anyone's ever been to the great state of North Dakota, but it's not warm to begin with. All right. So your natural gas prices are up 21.6%. And that's the average way people heat their home is with natural gas. Right. And now all of a sudden a wild snowstorm comes and they think winter is over. But now that it's not, they're getting walloped with another snowstorm. Here comes the next gas bill for their monthly usage, and bam, it's up again. The energy costs are so impactful in our life, and all we hear about in the media is when we're filling up our tank, right? Which, there's a good reason. Have you read how much?
40%.
48% year over year for fuel. That's how much it's up, right? So we can understand why it's a big conversation. That's huge.
Well, what I was going to say is 40% of energy that's like in the fossil fuel industry goes towards electricity.
Right.
The rest is exactly what you said. heating your homes,
filling your car.
filling your car.
But what do we read about? All we read about is the average gas price is X. I don't know, maybe you read or listen to something different I do, but it seems like that every time we hear about inflation and we hear about energy, it's always related to the price at the pump, which, again, gas prices are up 48% year over year. That's pretty large.
It's an indicator.
Yeah, and it's not fun. Well, I don't know, like Riley said the other week on our podcast, it's kind of fun to fill up your tank and it's $150.
Make some grin once in a while.
Yeah, but when you get the fuel bill that used to be $64,000 and it's $98,000, it's not as fun, right? But even that can be kind of fun. But the fact, what I'm getting at is nobody talks about the natural gas price and the electricity cost. And the people that are paying those two bills for our electric cost and our natural gas costs, those are not discretionary expenditures.
No.
Generally speaking, you need to be warm in order to go to bed at night and wake up healthy. I don't know. I could be wrong on that. But generally speaking, those things, like, it's not tons of negotiable.
Not optional. And the other interesting thing to me is even with these high prices and where we're at today, Americans are a different consumer than the rest of the world. I'm assuming, I guess. I've never spent so much time outside the U.S. But about a month ago, I went to Minneapolis to fly out to North Dakota with another guy. And it was kind of bad timing on our part because we were driving through the cities in the middle of rush hour. But they have this little lane on the left called the, what is it, HOV?
Yeah.
High occupancy vehicle, which means 2 people. You don't have to have like 8. And me and Calvin, all the way to the airport. Next to they were literally stopped. So you look at all these high gas prices, inflation, climate change, or whatever, however you want to dictate it, and people still don't want to make a sacrifice in any sort of way. And I would think that today would be the great time to do it, right? Like if we could save money in carpool, why wouldn't we? But we still don't.
Right. So do we really believe in it or do we not? That's a question that I keep arriving at.
Yep.
That if your electricity costs are going up 11%, your heating costs 21%, your fuel by 48%, and yet when you're going to the polls to place your vote, or you're making the decision on going to work or telecommuting, but yet you're driving to work even though you could just telecommute or whatever they call the latest humdinger, what do you actually believe? Are you just saying something because it feels good to say, or are we actually following what we say?
Well, what's the word? Virtue signaling.
Yeah, there you go. That's a great word. So CNBC says that when in these crazy times, I was reading an article, what do you do about this, right? And so CNBC says, well, it's really easy. There's just 3 things, John. 1, you go to your employer and you ask for a raise. And if they say no, you just go get a new job. Have you had anyone come ask for a raise because they're paying more at the gas pump?
There may or may not have been a few raises given over the last few weeks, yes.
Yeah. And it's a right thing to do, right? Our industry was under siege for the last few years, and we're finally seeing some improvement, some demand for our services return. We've had frank conversations with our clients. We're continuing those conversations because our employees do need more. That's factual. And so I can kind of get along with that.
But one thing that does is puts more money into the economy and makes things worse.
Right.
So it's kind of a double-edged sword. But
it is true. And then just because inflation is up 10% or what I say 8.5% doesn't mean your wages go up 8.5% because not all things are up 8.5%, right?
Right.
So the 2/3 of your money that's going out the door, 1/3 of it is for housing. Your housing costs really don't change unless you're renting, right? So for most of us, we're not feeling an 8.5% impact to our pocketbook. I know the media loves to announce these stats and act like your cost of living just went up 8.5%, but really it depends what your mix of expenses is, right? So CNBC says that's one thing you can do. They gave 3 things, and I found them all really highly entertaining. The second one, John, was put your money in a high interest rate I bond which matches the CPI, the Consumer Price Index. So there's these bonds that you can go buy, put your money in there, and then no matter what inflation does, your money follows that trajectory exactly. And so I was really interested in that because I thought, okay, if I'm looking to reduce my expenses, I'm probably not really have extra to save. But I don't know, maybe you're different than me. Maybe you save before you pay bills, or I don't know.
I like to keep the lights on and a roof over my head first.
And then you worry about saving? Okay.
Yes.
So if your energy costs, again, are up 11%, your heating cost is up 21%, and your fuel is up 48%, I found it highly entertaining that you should take some money and put it aside and just, park it over there and match the CPI. And then what? In 3 years, pay the bills? I don't know. That one was interesting. The third one was gauge your own personal inflation rate and decide if it affects you. So, spend some time with a real big research paper. These things will really help. And through it all, at the end of it, what I really realized, what the intent of the article was, relax. The federal government is here to take care of you. There'll be another stimulus that'll, definitely do good things for inflation.
Make things worse.
Yeah, I just found that really interesting. But I did think on that third one a little bit more globally about, determining your own inflation rate, right? Can you replace some of this stuff? So, back to your point, if you're really worried about the gas price, have you knocked on the neighbor's door and talked about carpooling?
Let's all go grocery shopping on Wednesday night.
Yep. I mean, I don't know. You have teenagers. I still have some teenagers. And one thing teenagers love to do is drive, right? And then they get into these awesome predicaments like, Dad, I'm at Super America and I don't have any money for gas. Can you Square Cash me? Like, whoa, absolutely, sweet cheeks. Like, I've been there, done that, just randomly found myself at the gas station with no money to pay. No, why are you at the gas station? Like, isn't this a school night? You should probably be doing homework. Oh, me and, Betsy just needed to run up to Target because why? Who knows, right? So that conversation, like, maybe now isn't the time to be just driving around back and forth.
Luckily for you, I was sitting home on the couch, bored, waiting for somebody to give me something to do. So thank you for calling and asking for some gas money.
Yeah,
you made my night.
Not only did you give something to do, but I've been wondering where I should invest my extra money. And exactly. So what better way than in my teenager? But there are things that you can do, like as far as this replacement and supplemental, like we can carpool, we can reduce our consumption. As much as we like to talk about climate change and actually not talk about doing something about it individually, there are things you can actually do if you care about your pocketbook, and especially if you're one of those that is out tooting your horn about the climate change.
Well,
now's the time.
There's Jordan Peterson wrote a book, The 12 Rules for Life, and I'm going to have to paraphrase this, but if you want to change the world, start by cleaning your room. And that pretty much sums it up.
That's a great one. Have you told your kids that one before by chance?
Absolutely.
That's a really good one. If you want to change your world, start by cleaning your room. Well, I also thought a little bit about, your electric costs going up 11%. And we just got done with a home show over here in the Twin Ports where we had a solar booth and we were talking about the rising cost of electricity, right? It's actually scares me how much electricity has yet to go. So it's up 11%. We're not done.
It hasn't even started.
That's just the inflationary pressure, right?
Yeah.
So when you say it hasn't even started, what are you talking about?
We can use Germany as a case study. 20 years ago, they decided to go down this green road. And I'm not even saying the green road's not the right road to go down. But if we're going to go down it, let's go down it with eyes wide open. So they've spent $500 billion to go from 80% fossil fuels to 74% fossil fuels. So in $500 billion, they reduced their consumption by 6%. And their electric bills went up double. France didn't go down the green road, they went down the nuclear road. And their costs actually stayed the same or went down with a lot less money invested. So it depends on how you're generating the electricity, plays into it. It's only natural, right? If you're using something that's expensive to make this is going to be more expensive. If this is cheap, then this is cheap.
Right.
So that's why I feel like as we go down this road and electric prices, 11%, if we continue down this road, which which I'm not saying we shouldn't even. Let's make sure that it's eyes wide open, because it is barely started.
Well, and when we've talked about it with our solar teams and we went to the solar conferences, the infrastructure we have does not support the electrification of the future. In its conventional sense, it just doesn't.
Not yet.
There's billions of dollars that needs to be invested in that infrastructure. No matter what actually happens, there's billions of dollars, because the train has departed the station, and we're now getting to Terminal C before we know it. And when we get there, here we are, right? There's infrastructure needs that have to happen. Who's going to pay for it? The electric users. How are you going to insulate yourself from those costs? Solar might be an option to do individually, right? Back to your comment about it doesn't really matter if you believe in the green movement or not. Here's a fact. Electricity costs are on the rise. One way that you can insulate yourself from those within your own sphere is to possibly, if you have the capital, invest in a solar system at your home and reduce your consumption of.
But there's such a big push nowadays for solar that there's really cool things happening. Not to go down the solar road too much, but the 26% tax rebate. But there's also finance companies out there that will take your existing cost, Minnesota Power bill, and match it to your solar payment until it's paid off. So a lot of times it's not even money out of pocket so much. It's the same, amount of money coming out of your pocket every month to invest in solar.
With one big difference, a flat cost.
A flat cost.
Not something that's wild depending on whatever society's latest whims are. So I thought that CNBC article was pretty interesting. And then I found myself, okay, Shane, what about you personally? What the heck are you going to do about inflation, right? Because I literally am experiencing it. Our Sam's Club, weekly bill, it hurts, John,
yes.
And as well as I do. So I was just thinking about it a little bit, that one third of our cost is related to our housing, right? Just in the form of a mortgage or rent payment. That's typical for an American. So, interest rates are rising. They're only going up from here. And a lot of us have been addicted to the refinance scheme, right? Like, I own a home. It just went up in $200,000 in value. Time to refinance because I'm going to get a better rate. But really what they're doing is getting the $200,000 out to go buy the snow machine, go buy the four-wheeler, remodel a kitchen. Turns out the walls are no longer, they got to have chiplap on them. Whatever happened to just sheetrock walls, right? No, now they got to have this fancy wood on it, and on we go. And before you know it, we might as well just go buy a new car too, because, it's only 3.5% interest rate. So I found myself just reminding in my family that, okay, refinancing is not an option. We have this awesome rate that we actually went to a 15-year during COVID and got an amazing rate, that it'll never ever happen again. So no refinancing. So one of the things I'm thinking about with inflation with people, just in conversation, is lock in your home price, right? For the next 15 years, I don't care what the federal government does, who's in office, who's doing who, whatever is going on up there in the White House and Congress and state levels and utility bills and everything else, 1/3 of my life is flat. Okay, that's huge for me. All of a sudden, I cleared out 1/3 of my brain space. But that's not all three parts, right? So then I thought, well, what about my food? Because, that's the biggest expense. Well, man, I wouldn't mind losing weight. I like to run, and so maybe I'll try to eat less. Kicking kids out of the house, like our top one leaving, that definitely helped the food expense. And all of a sudden I found myself in this weird paradigm again. Like, okay, we just talked about energy, green movement, and everything else, right? Now we're talking about inflation and food. And a lot of times some people like to eat plants because you shouldn't eat meat and all this different thing. Like, hey, what a great opportunity, folks. Now's the time to go prove yourself in that arena too, right? Go outside, grab some grass, whatever makes some salads. Go do it. That's one way we can reduce that expense too. And right with it, another thing I thought about is I always go buy a cow in South Dakota, right? I think you know this about me, that Dad grew up on a farm in South Dakota and got to go see the graves and, go down the old, what do you call it?
Memory
Nostalgic.
lane.
Yeah, memory lane. So we go there and we pick up a cow and we support the local farmer, which is awesome anyway. And then I fill up my freezer full of meat. And Riley, he just sat where you are a couple weeks ago and he just said, eat meat. Well, guess what? The big price increase with food, my wife just told me she couldn't find pasta noodles. Have you heard this? You can't find pasta noodles on the food shelf.
Well, I don't know if a lot of people are aware of the fact. There's back to David Ramson Wood, he had a little quote, or I don't know where he got it, but he said, if goods don't cross borders, soldiers will. But Ukraine and Russia produce over 12% of the wheat worldwide. And even if they decided today, you know what, we're done with the war, we'll have peace, let's get back to life as normal, we have a whole season of missed opportunity to put more wheat back into the global economy. So pasta noodles, that doesn't surprise me at all.
No.
There's going to be less of them, and they're going to be what?
They're gone. So my wife found out that you can, well, she always known this apparently, that you make your own pasta noodles, water, flour, do magic, whatever. So that's what we're doing. But I was telling her, well, Riley says just eat meat, because guess what? Meat is grown right here in America. We don't have to worry about it. I don't care if Russia, Ukraine blow each other up, whatever you got going on over there, I just eat meat. So I really was thinking that was an important comment that Riley made on our podcast recently. So get on a path to home ownership if you don't have it and stick with it. Quit the refinancing business. Review your food, which is eat less, buy a cow, pig, whatever, or do the Riley thing and just eat meat. But whatever you do, don't plan on noodles. Third, review your options for energy, right? So we kind of talked about that a little bit, that's the biggest impact on inflation right now is energy. So look at what you can do. Maybe you can turn the heat down a little bit. You know, boy, we did that at the office and all the gals went and got the space heaters. And then I was trying to make coffee and breakers are blowing. Like, what's going on around here? So it doesn't always work. But, you know, maybe that's something that people can do. And
I was happy to leave that end of the building as a side note.
Oh, were you? Because was it warm?
Well, yeah, the temperature they liked and I liked were two different arenas.
I can only imagine. So the piece of that about reviewing your options for energy, though, I'm really, really excited about an upcoming guest on our podcast from the federal government to ask him specifically about this, because it is time to educate ourselves on this very, very important topic. You need to go vote, and you need to vote with this in mind if you truly care about your pocketbook.
It's huge. It's huge.
I don't think we've arrived as people as to how huge it really is.
I don't think that as we go about our day-to-day lives, that 95% of us, and I'll include myself in it, most of the time, I walk into a room, I flick on a light, it's set at 68 degrees, and it doesn't even compute that this is something. Well, last week I was down in the Permian with one of our guys that served in Afghanistan for quite a few years. And he was telling us about how these villagers in Afghanistan, what they cared about. Actually, he talked about it one time when me and you were there.
Yep.
And what did they care about?
Go ahead.
Getting some food for the day and surviving to the next day. So there's people today in the world living like that. And I think it's something that we need to be reminded about when we are in our virtue signaling attitude and we're not paying attention and we're just doing things and we're just going through life. Like, I don't think anything about electricity. It's just, of course you have it. If the power goes out, you're calling the power bill company and like, what's the matter? Get out here. I need power right now.
Right.
Instead of, you know, if we really wanted to make a difference, I've read different stats or whatever, but you're right. Maybe you set your house at 61 degrees. I don't know if you were aware of someone hit a natural gas line this winter in Duluth. So the city of Duluth sent out a mandate for the east side of Duluth to set your thermostats at, I think it was 62.
Oh, it must have been an uproar.
It absolutely was an uproar.
I would have loved to see that on social media. There was probably people, and the same people, by the way, that were pushing for the climate change agenda were probably the first ones on Facebook crying wolf that they're cold. But
I'll leave that to your own imagination. But yes, you're right.
Well, it's bad if you leave it to my imagination. So, what about business? We talked about personal, what we can do, right, or how we're struggling with inflation personally. And I've had some private conversations with some of our team members. They're hurting. It's not fun for them, and I think we have a ways to go as a company on how we can help them better. But talking about business, so I was trying to come up with some ideas as to what you can do within your business. And one of the things that came to me loud and clear when I was in North Dakota. I don't remember if it was last week or week before, but it's time to check in with them and really feel their pain and ask them how they're doing. What does this mean to you? And actually, when you check in with them, you can have some really, really cool conversations. Because, I think we can forget this as leaders sometimes in an organization. Your team is looking to you, not just about what job they have to do today, but even sometimes on how to live. They're people they're working with. That's who they trust, right? We just heard in our sales and marketing meeting this morning about how people do business with people. And I think employees do people with people.
Absolutely.
Right. They want to work with a company who truly cares. So get out there and check in with these guys because, folks, this is a weird world. Again, since 1981, we haven't been here. And some of us, myself included, have never lived through it, let alone tried to lead through it or be a dad through it. And I might need your help, right? Because you're older than me.
Brave new world.
So then the other thing I was talking about, or we've been talking about as a team, beyond just checking in with your team, is that we have to constantly go back to our mission, don't we?
I went to breakfast with some guys from out of town this morning. And we were talking about, we were all about the same age. I was a little bit older.
That's weird.
I usually find that to be the case. But nevertheless.
I don't think that'll improve.
Weird coincidence.
Yeah.
But the difference between when we were coming up through the ranks versus today. And I made the comment that that's irrelevant. It doesn't really matter what I think. It really doesn't. It matters what Shane thinks or Joe thinks or Bill thinks or Bob thinks. It's their perspective that matters. It used to be that, whatever, go find a job across the street, whatever. If you don't want to work here, that's the rules, that's the ideas, that's what we're paying, yada, yada, yada. And that part of the society has went away, which I think is actually a good thing. That it's not just about dollars and cents, but there's a bigger picture and a bigger value and a mission that people can get involved in.
Well, and I think believing in that mission gets you away from all the clutter and the noise, right? So the media is freaking out, clients are freaking out, everything's like just on edge. Russia bombing Ukraine fighting back, Europe wondering if they're going to starve to death or if they're going to freeze to death, which one's going to come first? America, should we be involved? Should we not be? Oh, now I got to go put gas in my van and my debit card is like really not loving the abuse. All of that noise goes away when you're like, oh, that's right. There's more to life than getting caught up in all of this stuff. So when we talk about business, if you don't have an adequate mission, if your mission is to make a profit, you're going to see your leadership team on edge, probably in the bathroom more than they ever had been before, wondering what to do about inflation. But it turns out if you're out to energize America, inflation is just a thing, right? It's just there. That's why neither of us really know what we're talking about with it. Because frankly, it doesn't matter.
Well, either way, we're going to energize America, right?
I sure hope so.
We have to be aware of inflation. We have to have plans for expense management. We have to be aware of the employees. There's different things. We don't just put our head in the sand.
Right.
That's a difference.
But price is just a function of energizing America.
Exactly.
Right. So then the other thing I thought about was when acknowledging that price is part of it. But how do you actually acknowledge that? And I think you really have to know your numbers and understand how these things are impacting your numbers specifically. So that, for us at Wescom, we have to understand when we come up with a rate, what does that rate comprise of, right? Well, we know we have employees, we know we have fuel, we know we have maintenance, we know we have other job costs. Well, are employees 10% of that cost, 50%, 80%? What are they? What is fuel of it? What is maintenance? What's other job cost? And then how are all of these costs going up, right? Just because inflation is up 8.5% doesn't mean that fuel is up 8.5%. It's actually up 24% month over month for us. Maintenance costs on our rigs are up 38%. If I would have just used the 8.5% number, we would have been in a world of hurt, right? And employees, do you know that I read on Bloomberg that employees' wages have fallen year over year by 2.74%?
I was not aware of that.
There's been a reduction in wages overall. There's one segment, the hospitality segment, that has seen an increase, but everyone else has actually seen a decrease in their wages per hour because benefits are starting to take up such a big piece of it. But overall,
gotcha.
their hourly compensation is down.
The money that goes in their
2.7%.
checking account.
Yep, is down, and that's compared to inflation being up 8. Isn't that interesting? But the point here is that you've got to know your numbers and how they impact. So when we talk about inflation in business, check in with your team, believe in your mission, know your numbers and how they individually impact you. And then okay, so you have all that, now what? Then it's having that tough conversation, right, with your clients. And because it turns out if you know those 3 things, if you truly have checked in with your team, that means that you really respect them and you probably know what it's like to put on your bibs and go out in a 50-mile-an-hour windstorm or snowstorm where you just had 3 feet of snow and try and pull some cable. It makes it a little easier to understand why your numbers matter and why your employees need to be paid, which makes it really much easier to know that you're out to energize America, and therefore I got to believe in those 2 things. So, hey, client, guess what? Time for a tough conversation. But if you just go into that tough conversation that, well, inflation's up 8.5%, so I'd like a 8.5% rate increase. Doesn't seem like that's going to go real well, right?
Yeah, so would we.
Yeah, that's probably the response. So I think it's really important that you use this belief in your mission coupled with your relationship with your guys and your respect for them.
Well, that's what drives the mission.
Right. That's true. So believe in your mission, the people behind it, and the numbers that are necessary to support it allows for that tough conversation to have. And the reason why it's important you really, really believe in it is because it's not a very fun conversation. We just experienced it, right? I think
And I think if we're honest with ourselves, we kind of wonder if it's the right conversation and we have doubts and your head kind of spins a little bit, but you have to go back to something. And that's what you have, the mission.
And boy, even when you go back to that mission and now you're actually going to go have the conversation with the client, I mean, I'm what, 8-9 years into this and my knees still tremble at the thought of having that tough conversation. I'm just being honest. I hate that part of my job. I absolutely hate it. Now, there are clients that we work for that are so awesome that just embrace the conversation. And there are even clients who have difficulty with it, but give it a week and they call you back and they're like, you know what, man, I understand it. I don't like it, but I understand it. And you know what? I've also seen your team out there. I've been in that 30, 40, 50 mile an hour wind. I've been in the 3 feet of snow. I've been in the, what were you saying about a sandstorm?
Well, when we were in the Permian, it was 91 degrees and 50 mile an hour gusts. And we spent an hour and a half on location and I was like, hats off, boys, hats off.
Because you can hardly
It's
see,
impressive.
let alone produce anything in that kind of wind. The final thing I feel like is so important in all this inflation conversation, and it's, we talked briefly about it at home, but especially in business, you have to educate yourself and everyone around you. So when you're walking down the hallway and Susie says something about the gas price and how, it's just stupid that Russia bombed Ukraine and now we're paying the price. There's such an opportunity right there to say, hey, wait a second, Susie. That might be impacting it, but guess what? Oil prices were up significantly before Russia bombed Ukraine. And the reason why oil prices are up is because we have an administration and a society who has turned their back on oil and gas and realized that they need it, right? It's one thing to turn your back. Like, you've probably had a spat with your wife. Well, you haven't. You're a chill guy. I've had a spat with my wife a time or two, right? And it always turns out I need her. So I have to go back, make it right, and start anew. If you don't do that, guess what happens? You end up divorced, right? And that never ends well.
Never.
It's always costly. So, society, if you're going to divorce the oil and gas industry, it ain't going to be pretty, and it's going to be expensive. The media will love to throw these made-up reasons out there, right? Certainly, Russia getting bombed, bombing Ukraine has not helped.
It's a portion.
It's pushed it, right? But we have the ability to be 100% energy independent in this country. 100%. Over 1/3 of our cost every month is in the form of energy. And we're beholden to the world events.
And now, what are we going to be shipping to Europe? Natural gas.
LNG. to go help them out. It's really time for us to get real as a country, folks, because inflation is up 8.5%. People are feeling it in their pocketbook. They're looking for people to blame. They're looking what to do about it. And most of them need to go take a fat look in front of that mirror and decide, at the next election, I need to make a policy change. Because that's the ultimate thing. And I'm not saying Democrat versus Republican. That's not at all what I'm saying. But if you care about your energy, it's time to make a policy change. If you care about your money. And, by the way, business owners, it's time for you to take opportunity and educate your people. Because, again, what did we just say? When people are at work, who do they trust?
They trust the people they work with.
And for good reason, hopefully, right? So foster that awesome conversation. We've had some pretty doozies of conversations in our lunchroom, you might say.
Highly entertaining.
Highly entertaining.
Say the least.
Yeah, very little educational content. But every now and then there's a little nugget of content that comes out of there, right? And those conversations are some of the coolest things that, one of the best reasons why I work at Wescom, frankly, is, yeah, and I don't care if it's in the pickup on the way out to a location, if it's when I'm on a location talking about a JSA, if I was at a restaurant in North Dakota, a little podunk place. I ran into a guy who works for a major oil producer, and he had a hat on, a political hat on, and I didn't realize that because I'm kind of short. I don't know if you know that. And when I introduced myself to the guy, he was fairly tall, and Will, our safety guy, he's fairly tall. So he realized right away, and he backed away. I had no idea of what I was getting myself into. And this guy launched into a tirade about oil and gas and everything going on around it.
How bad it was?
No, he was actually very much pro. So you could guess what kind of a hat he had on. I went and sat down to have my lunch with Will, which was already cold at this place. And he's like, don't you hate when some people do that? And I said, you know what, Will? I don't know. I think I'm kind of jealous. Because that old farmer, he saw an opportunity to educate somebody, and he took it. Oh, well, that I got a cold sandwich. He taught me something. And I think I kind of know a little bit about oil and gas, but he knew a lot. And he was not going to waste an opportunity to make sure I knew.
That's an awesome story.
So I think that's what we need to do as people and as businesses. Inflation.
And not in a confrontational way, right?
No.
It's a conversation.
It was totally conversational. He asked me what I did for a living, and then he asked me what my opinion was on oil and gas. And then he launched. And I'm telling you, if Russia had him in their country, they might win the war in Ukraine. And if he was in Ukraine, Ukraine would easily defend themselves. He had some stats. So, well, good conversation. I think inflation is important. It's a thing. But again, get out there, believe in what you're doing. Who gives a flying flute about inflation? Just acknowledge it and make it part of your business. Is that how we sum it up?
Keep on energizing America.
Let's do it. Thanks for coming.
You bet.